Clara and Daniel Halden seemed like the textbook perfect couple. Living in the quiet suburb of Green Lake, Ohio, they had been high school sweethearts who married young and built a seemingly idyllic life. Clara was a school teacher, quiet and soft-spoken. Daniel was a real estate agent with a smile that sold more houses than any ad ever could. Their neighbors often remarked how lucky Clara was. Daniel was charming, always mowing the lawn with his shirt off, and never forgetting Clara's birthday. But what the neighbors didn't see was what Clara had slowly started to uncover: small, nagging inconsistencies. Late-night texts that were brushed off. Receipts from restaurants she'd never been to. That faint perfume on his jacket that wasn't hers. Clara had started to keep a journal, not just of events, but of her emotions. "I don't want to believe it," she wrote one night. "But I think he's seeing someone else." Her suspicions were confirmed the day she followed him. Clara had borrowed a friend's car and waited outside Daniel's office. Around 6:15 p.m., instead of heading home, Daniel drove to a small motel on Route 6. Clara watched as a tall, young woman in a red coat got out of a different car and joined him in room 12. Clara didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she began documenting everything. Dates, locations, photos. 4 weeks. Maybe she was hoping he'd stop. Maybe she wanted enough to prove to herself she wasn't crazy. When she finally did confront him, Daniel didn't deny it. He simply said, "You were never enough for me, Clara. We grew apart." What Clara didn't know is that Daniel's affair wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. The woman, 29-year-old Melissa Avery, was a divorcee from Daniel's past client list. She came from money, and Daniel had been drowning in debt from failed investments. With Clara out of the way, Daniel stood to gain everything: their house, her savings, and most importantly, a future with Melissa. On September 8, 2022, Clara texted her sister, "I'm meeting Daniel tonight. He says he wants to talk. Maybe it's closure." She was never seen again. At first, no one panicked. Clara had no kids, and she'd been distant since the discovery of the affair. But when she didn't show up for work or respond to texts, her sister filed a missing person report. Daniel claimed she left him. That she packed a bag and said she needed time away. "We were separated," he told police. "I figured she'd come back." But Clara's car was still in the garage. Her phone was off. Her bank accounts untouched. Detective Laura Vance of the Green Lake PD took one look at Daniel and didn't buy his grieving husband act. She learned from Clara's sister about the affair and the meeting on September 8. But Daniel insisted they never met that night. "We talked on the phone," he claimed. She said she needed space. Phone records said otherwise. The GPS from Clara's phone showed her last location as being near Lake Bray, a secluded area about 45 minutes out of town. Surveillance footage from a gas station nearby showed Clara's car, but no sign of her returning. What the footage did capture, 2 hours later, was Daniel's truck leaving the area. Police brought Daniel in for questioning, but he refused a polygraph. No body, no weapon, no confession. But Clara had left something behind: her journal. Inside it, she'd recorded all her suspicions. The date and time of the motel visits. Even a recording she'd made during their final argument. One line stood out. "You don't get to erase me, Daniel. I won't be a ghost in your perfect future." Her words hit hard. Hard enough to move the DA to push for a grand jury. It wasn't enough for a murder charge, but it was enough to keep the pressure on. Melissa Avery had stood by Daniel until the media frenzy became too much. Protesters outside her salon. Her parents pulling their financial support. And then came the late-night call from Daniel, panicked and erratic, saying he needed to disappear for a while. That's when she flipped. She admitted to police that Daniel had confided something chilling just days after Clara vanished. He said, "It's done. We can be together now. She won't come between us anymore." Melissa agreed to wear a wire during a staged meeting with Daniel. In a parking lot off Route 9, Melissa met Daniel and asked him point blank, "Did you kill her?" There was a pause. Then, under his breath, he said, "It doesn't matter now. No one will find her." That was enough. Daniel was arrested on charges of murder, obstruction of justice, and destruction of evidence. Forensic teams scoured Lake Bray and surrounding woods for months. 6 months later, Clara's remains were found buried in a shallow grave off a hiking trail near the lake. Dental records confirmed the identity. The trial took nearly a year. Daniel pled not guilty, but with Melissa's testimony, the wire recording, and the GPS evidence, he was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. Clara's sister, Sarah, spoke at sentencing. "My sister trusted love. She trusted someone who saw her as disposable. But she mattered. She left a trail. She left a voice. And now, she has justice." Clara's journal is now part of a domestic violence exhibit at the Ohio Women's Advocacy Center. Her story is taught in law classes and featured in podcasts and YouTube documentaries as a haunting reminder. Sometimes, monsters wear wedding rings.